right. Good evening, everybody. Matthew Fab here, Western Washington weather, and we are going to be watching live as we have some thunderstorms moving through the region. I'm going to leave it here on radar scope for just a second while I get this live stream posted here on social media. Thank you everybody for joining. Be sure to like, subscribe, share. You can even drop in a channel donation there on the chat. You can do super chat there, and that will give a donation to the channel, which allows me to even further elevate the product that we are sharing here on Western Washington weather. So be sure to do that. Let me just get this posted out here. Okay. And be sure to drop in the chat as well where you are and if you've been getting any thunderstorms this evening or if you've seen any lightning in the distance. I can tell you guys I was just outside for a couple of hours here, just sitting with my drone up in the sky and watching the lightning in the distance. I had some to my south over parts of Pierce County. I had some to the east over parts of the Cascades as well. And I am in Federal Way, so that's where I was watching from. So, yeah, I've been seeing a lot of lightning. I hope some of you have been able to watch it as well. Let me just get this posted here to the Facebook group. And again, if you want to check out any of my social media and follow along with Western Washington weather, we will take a look at that a little bit later in the live stream as well. So be sure to put in the chat there if you are seeing any lightning right now, and then we will take a look here at this radar and see what is going on across the region in terms of thunderstorms, where they're going to go, and if the forecast models did very well with these. And spoiler alert, I don't think they did. So let me just get this posted here. Almost done with that, and then we can dive into it. You can see radar scope right there, and we'll take a look at that here in a moment. All right. Thank you everybody for hopping on the chat here. Be sure to like and subscribe. You can also donate with the super chat function. That is brand new. I just got that set up recently. So let's dive right into what's going on right now. It looks like we do have a mesoscale discussion in effect from the Storm Prediction Center, and this is saying here, this is I actually had not seen this until just now. So an instance or two of flash flooding is possible across the Pacific Northwest as scattered thunderstorms move slowly and erratically over the next 2 to 4 hours. Areas of 1 inch per hour rainfall rates are expected. So recent radar images show an expansion in convective coverage across western and central Washington state. Storms currently moving northwestward. Weak low-level shears promoting areas of outflow-driven activity with erratic storm motions and potentials of up to 1 inch of rain per hour there in some of these storms. So you can see, if we zoom out there, see that green outline. That is where we have that mesoscale discussion there in effect, and you can see some of these lightning strikes. Let's go and take a look here at our satellite image. So this is looking at the mid-level water vapor loop, and you can see here where that anvil developed over with those huge thunderstorms across parts of the Cascades. And we're actually going to make this a little bit of a longer loop here so we can look back over parts of this evening and we can see kind of how we've had actually, we can go even further here. Hold on. Because we had some thunderstorms this morning across parts of the area as well. I heard thunder a couple of times at my house in Federal Way this morning about 10 a.m. or so. And then, of course, we had a break most of the day, and then we had some more storms this afternoon. So, and they ended this evening. So this is going to take a minute to load because it's a very long satellite loop. And then all these little pluses you're seeing here, pluses and minuses you're seeing, there are positive or negative lightning strikes across the region. And it'll just be interesting to see once this whole thing loads, we can just see how we've had storms across the area all day and how everything's kind of blended into each other. Let me catch up on the chat there real quick. Christopher Robert says, on the North Oregon coast, sad we barely got anything. Yeah, that area didn't really get that much. A lot of the storms started to fire as they moved up to the Washington coast. So now we have this satellite loop playing all the way through here. So you can see as we go to this evening, you have those storms across parts of Oregon, and then those storms start across the Washington coast, and then you get the stuff starting across the Cascades that turned into some storms near Tacoma there as well. You can see the morning activity there across parts of the Cascades, and then some lightning strikes near Tacoma. And then you kind of have a lull, and then we get some stuff across Oregon, and then off the coast and in the Oregon Cascades at the same time. One of these was a severe warned thunderstorm across parts of Clackamas County, and then you have the stuff here in the Cascades, and that has been what's going on for a while now. And if we take a look at the most recent frame, so let me stop this at the most recent frame here. Hold on just a second. There we are. Oh, and it does not really want to stop here. Then we can just let it play through here actually a little bit. So you can see you have the stuff this morning, and then we'll keep going, and again we get some more stuff that developed across Oregon, severe warned storm this afternoon, and then some storms off the coast, and then it just develops right here, Central Cascades near Mount Rainier, and you can see how it just scatters. And now if we look at the current radar, you can see where we have some developing storms to the south of Puget Sound there near Olympia, and then continuing storms across parts of the Cascades and eastern Washington a little bit as well, central and eastern Washington, and then this narrow band of storms over parts of Seattle. And we can look at this a little bit more zoomed in here on Radar Scope. Very nice radar app to have here. So taking a look at that, you can see where some of these storms are developing right now. We have some storms here off of Highway 8 near Elma and Brady, and then a lightning strike there just south of Oakville on US 12, and then some more storms here over parts of the Capitol Forest and some of those mountains in there. And then we have the strongest storms, again, Ashford, Elby, and Eatonville. These areas have had really strong storms for a few hours now, and that is just continuing across that parts of southern Pierce County into very extreme southeast Thurston County, and then parts of Lewis County as well. Because if we play this radar loop, once we get this to load here, you can see that Eatonville, Elby, and Ashford have had thunderstorms for a couple of hours now. So you see these storms start across parts of Mount Rainier, then lots around Elby and Ashford, and it's just continuing there. There's been multiple storms that have moved through those areas. We had some develop and then move north, and now we got more moving through. And then as we scroll to the north here, you can see that we've got some storms going on here across parts of Easton near Snoqualmie Pass there, and some light rain at times over parts of Federal Way, Tacoma. You had some stuff earlier over parts of western Tacoma there, Lakewood near Joint Base Lewis McChord, Fox Island, and Gig Harbor and stuff like that. And then we have these decaying storms that are starting to move up toward North Bend and Snoqualmie, Fall City, and stuff like that. And there may be some outflow on these as well. You may get some brief outflow winds and stuff like that. So we'll have to watch the real-time observations page for more on that. And then you had this little line that developed here very briefly over parts of north of Seattle. So you got North Seattle shoreline, Bothell, Kirkland, Redmond, and stuff like that. And there were a couple lightning strikes with this, and now that is starting to diminish. So that's not really going anywhere. That's pretty much decaying now, but you can see a little bit of outflow going on here across parts of Fall City, North Bend, Snoqualmie, and then more stuff going on here across central Washington there, north of Easton, and right there along parts of I-90, and then up here near Blewett Pass. And then you can see over Ellensburg, we just had a thunderstorm move through, and a rain report there as well. So that's good to see, because we want as little of this as possible to be dry thunderstorms, because as we have seen very, very clearly these past few weeks, the dry thunderstorms are really a huge potential cause of fires. And we actually had a dry thunderstorm caused fire in the Olympic Mountains it was discovered this morning, I believe. And then we can actually look at that. It was discovered this morning by a lightning strike last night. Not the Wildcat Fire. We all are familiar with the Wildcat Fire by now. It's right up here. It's called the Tunnel Creek Fire, and it's about 8 miles southwest of Quilcene there. And it already has a perimeter. It's burned 100 acres so far. You can see a couple little areas that have burned there. And that was caused by a lightning strike that moved through yesterday, and it was discovered this morning. And it has continued to burn a little bit. Had a bit of a smoke column this morning as well. So let me check in the chat here. Be sure, again, if you are tuning into the stream, to say where you are, if you've been having any thunderstorms, you've got any questions about what's coming up for you tonight in terms of where some of these storms are going. Let's see, A says there in the chat, any opinions for Sammamish and Issaquah tonight? So Sammamish and Issaquah, you can see that it looked like some of these storms were going to survive, and now it looks like you're just getting into some rain there. There's a few lightning strikes in there, but not very much. You can see it's just kind of diminishing into some stratiform rain. You may get a little bit of outflow winds up there, but I'm not thinking really anything in the way of thunderstorms for Sammamish and Issaquah. You can see that a lot of the activity has shifted over here toward parts of Pierce County, and that's looking like how it's going to continue right now. As some of these storms start to get off the mountains, they're really losing their strength very quickly, and if you zoom out a little bit there, you can kind of see that, how they develop over the mountains and then start to move out a little bit and then lose their strength. Air quality seems to be improving. That's a good thing. Let's take a look at that, because as you all probably saw, we had some interesting air quality stuff going on the last couple days when you had some of that smoke coming off the Wildfire, and that brought some really bad air quality to some of you folks in Seattle, and then here. So yeah, you can see that there. Eastern Washington having a really tough time in terms of air quality. You're looking at the very unhealthy category there in Wenatchee, and then Grand Coulee, Omak, stuff like that, having the very unhealthy. And then look over here, Northeast Washington. Look at Colville. You're in the hazardous category there. This is like don't go outside type of stuff right there. But taking a look across Western Washington, we're doing a lot better than we were. You can see some of the areas that have had storms move through either this morning or just tonight here into the good category, and even parts of the east side where you've been dealing with a little bit more of that smoke are back into the good category. And then from Everett northward, very nice clean marine air there, near zero air quality, which is actually really great to see. So yeah, you can. Thank you for mentioning that there. That the air quality is getting better. Will more rain be coming overnight and tomorrow for North Seattle? Let's take a look here at the forecast. We can actually take a look at the European model. This is the latest run, and we can see as we go through tonight, it really did quite poorly. It had all these storms kind of cutting off south of Tacoma, and a quick check of the radar shows that that is happening a little bit, but it didn't even show anything going on in the Cascades, and it really underdid some of the coverage down here across Pierce County. So if we take a look at a more rapidly updating forecast here, the high resolution rapid refresh model, this is picking up a little bit more some of that rain over parts of the Cascades, coming out over parts of the lowlands. Still not doing very well with it, but showing about a little bit of a drizzle there for that area you're talking about, North Seattle. And if we look at our live map here, let's take a look at that here. This forecast, this is a great tool from the National Weather Service, and it just kind of shows us what is going on as we speak. And so yeah, we can take a look at the rainfall. We'll go to 24 hours. So you can see some areas have actually picked up some pretty decent totals. You can see 0.4 inches there right near the Wildfire, really good to see, and a few hundredths of an inch across parts of the lowlands so far. Some of the areas that have been under some of these thunderstorms have gotten a little bit more, about a tenth of an inch or so, but overall rainfall amounts not super high because these storms are moving a little bit on the quick side, so not too much of a chance for rain to fall in those storms. So you can see even on the coast where some of these storms move through, not very much in the way of rainfall. So if we look at a couple other forecasts, we can look at the NAM model as well. And that shows a little bit more of a scattered nature of some storms. But again, rain not over a tenth of an inch. So not good for rain in the lowlands, but pretty good for rain on the fire. Puget Sound Storm Watch in here also live. That's great. Thank you for joining there, Anthony. And then everybody, just wanted to do a little plug there. Puget Sound Storm Watch. If you're on Facebook, just a great source for Puget Sound area content in terms of weather updates and storm forecasts and live streams and stuff like that. especially for those folks on Facebook. Anthony, who runs Puget Sound Stormwatch, is on my Facebook group as well as a group expert and really helps add to that community. And he just hit 20,000 followers on Facebook, which is a huge milestone. I mean, it takes quite a while to get to something like that. So go and check out Puget Sound Stormwatch on Facebook and YouTube, a great source for localized weather updates and a pretty cool community as well. So going back to our forecast here, NAM model, you can see picked up some of these storms pretty well on parts of the coast, but it kind of overdid some of the rainfall. You're not getting amounts over an inch in there, just not really happening with these storms because of how quickly they're moving. You may get some very, very small areas, again, like we were talking about in that mesoscale discussion issued by the Storm Prediction Center. Some of these areas under these heavy storms may briefly get up toward an inch of rain or so, but that's going to be extremely localized. Also of note here, you can see this radar isn't picking it up, but it's picking up a lot of lightning strikes offshore still. You can see that in the satellite loop in the radar here. You're looking from the coastal radar, there is still storms going on well off the Washington coast, and you can kind of see this line that the storms are all in, stretching from way offshore through parts of the southwest interior here around Grays Harbor, Mason, and Thurston counties, and then this activity over parts of Puget Sound. And one thing we can also take a look at is wind gusts. You're probably not going to see all too much out of this, but you actually see a little bit of some gusts here at the Chinook Pass summit. This is not good in terms of the fire that we currently have winds gusting up to 39 miles per hour out there. But let's see, what direction are those going? Those could be outflow winds. Yeah, it looks like Chinook Pass there, you got some outflow winds from these thunderstorms. So that's not good. That could cause some erratic fire behavior, but hopefully this amount of rain that we got, up to a half inch there for Chinook Pass, brought down some of the fire activity on the Wildcat fire. Let me tune into the chat here real quick. Are these storms going to persist over the next few days is the question. Does not look like it. This is a pretty isolated, in terms of the storms over Puget Sound. In terms of storms over the mountains, we may have some more here over the next few days. To be honest, I have not looked in too much detail at some of the extended forecasts. So here's the European model, though. So we're looking at lightning flash density over a 3-hour period. So this is kind of showing where the chance of lightning is. And you can see it did okay with some of these storms over the southern and central Cascades, but didn't really pick up some of the stuff that snuck up here into the Puget Sound area, especially around Tacoma there. It cut off a little bit past Olympia. So it's doing okay, but there was a bit more widespread activity than the European model showed. Going into this to Sunday morning here, you can see a little bit of storm potential across parts of the Olympics, and then maybe the North Sound there. You can see Whidbey Island and parts of the Hood Canal area and up toward Skagit County having a potential for some storms. And then look at eastern Washington and the Cascades going into Sunday afternoon, especially parts of eastern Washington over toward the Palouse there, and maybe out even toward like places like Pullman and stuff like that. Big thunderstorm potential there across parts of eastern Washington tomorrow afternoon. And then going into Monday, you can see we calmed down a little bit. Monday afternoon, though, still seeing that potential across the Cascades, and some of these could, again, be dry thunderstorms, which is really not what we want to see right now. And then going into Tuesday, you can see more chances across the Cascades. And then Wednesday, also some more chances across the Cascades. And then Thursday, you can see it gets a little bit more isolated. And then by Friday afternoon, it's really quite isolated only to the central and northern Cascades. So, Armand, to answer your question there, yes, these will persist over the next few days, but not for the Sound, just for the mountains and some points eastward, which really does keep our fire weather threat quite high in terms of weather that is starting fires. This definitely could do that. Now let's take a look here. Leon, welcome to the chat. My friend, lightning seen from southeast from Auburn a couple minutes ago. Yeah, that's about where I was seeing it as well when I had my drone up. If we take a look at our radar here, let's see, why is that not loading? There we go. Hold on. There we go. Yeah, let's pause it on the latest. There, yeah, you can see you got lightning south of Auburn there. There's still some activity across parts of Eatonville there. So that's why you'd be seeing lightning there. And then we had someone else say in the chat here, it's in Ellensburg and it's insane. So if we zoom into Ellensburg there, let's see. This app is not doing too hot on the computer tonight. So let's take a look at the radar here on this site. You could see right there over Auburn, not Auburn, sorry, that's what we were just talking about. Southeast of Auburn there again, for Leon's question in the chat. Yeah, you can see the lightning would be southeast of there. And Ellensburg, yeah, there's a thunderstorm that just moved through there. I don't know if there's any rain with it. Let's see. Actually, yeah, it looks like some decent rain, probably pretty quick, about a 1/4 inch or so. Sonia says, I live in the wrong area. I just want a thunderstorm. What area do you live in there, Sonia? Are you outside of the area that's been seeing the storms today? Let's keep going here as well. So if we look at our extended forecast for the next couple days in terms of potential radar, this is a simulated radar here, saying it kind of stopped there in Ellensburg. Yeah, it's moving to the north of Ellensburg right now. So going over the next few days here in terms of the simulated radar, this is composite reflectivity forecast. You can see this is the RRFS model. It's not one that we talk about very often, but it did quite well in terms of picking up these storms across parts of Oregon. And as we go through the next few frames here, you can see it did okay in picking up some of this activity across parts of the Cascades. Didn't show it as strong as it ended up being, and didn't show some of the storms that were on the coast. We had a decent amount of activity on the coast and then parts of the southwest interior, and this one didn't pick that up. But then you can see as we go through tonight, it shows some of that rain moving through parts of the Puget Sound area. A few more potential showers Sunday morning, but likely not convective, except maybe potentially up north here over parts of Whidbey Island and up towards Skagit County. And then going into tomorrow afternoon, see some of this storm potential across eastern Washington, parts of the Cascades. It may be more widespread than this based on what the European model is showing, but you get the idea of storms right along the spine of the Cascades and eastward. And then going into Monday, you can see some showers potentially across Portland and up into southwest Washington. These may be convective, but it's a little bit uncertain at this time. And then more thunderstorms across parts of eastern Washington and the southern Cascades, and maybe down toward Portland as well going into Monday night. And then some potential showers swinging back through the Puget Sound area. As we go into Tuesday morning, you can see that there on the RRFS forecast. And then maybe kicking off a few more thunderstorms across parts of North Washington and South Central British Columbia there. And then taking a look at precipitation totals with all these storms. The area that's being highlighted for the most precipitation is the Cascades from Pierce County, so basically from Mount Rainier down into Oregon, and then potentially across parts of southwest Washington if we get some decent storms forming in that area as well. And then you can see the Puget Sound area maybe about 1/10 of an inch or so, so not all that much there. Hold on, folks. I will be right back. I need to go grab something real quick. Let me put it back on our radar loop. I'll be back in just a second. All right, we're back, everybody. Sorry for the delay. All right, let me catch up on the chat here. Power might have gone out in Ellensburg. Nice. Seeing some crazy lightning in the Bonnie Lake area. Yes, this is probably some of the same stuff I was seeing looking to the south over parts of the Cascades. Yeah, if you look at the radar there, you can see why you'd be seeing some lightning in Bonnie Lake, because there's a lot of activity to the south there over parts of southern Pierce County, Thurston County, kind of right by where I have my cursor there. Paul Davis said saw a lightning bolt west of Husky Stadium. Yeah, that was a little bit earlier. I don't know if that will show up on this satellite loop. Let me try to get the right frame. Yeah, you can kind of see it. Let me zoom in here. Yeah, there's one there. That's what Paul's talking about. Just west of Husky Stadium, we had a couple of strikes there. Just to the northwest of Seattle. Speaking of which, glad to see the Huskies winning. Go Dogs for all of you on here. Kelly Hamilton says, a lot of lightning in Puyallup. Thank you for being live. Of course, very glad to do so. It's always fun to talk about the weather, especially when stuff is going on. And you can see also there, and just in this frame, too, just the amount of strikes across parts of the Cascades. I mean, there's just a ton of lightning going on. And although we can't guarantee that there's rain with this, I wouldn't be surprised to see a few new fires, unfortunately, because, and this is something I've been using as an example the last few videos I've been doing, is that we had, and if you all may recall this, a few weeks ago, back in August, we had an atmospheric river here over the Bear Gulch fire, and that area got 1.5 to 2 inches of rain. And then as we go a couple weeks later, the fire's now up to 10,275 acres. It was not that size when we had the atmospheric river. So just because you get a thunderstorm moving over an area, and then you get rain with that thunderstorm, you can still start a fire. And that is something that we have to remember, because you're seeing, of course, on that radar there, let me go show that radar again. You're seeing on this radar a lot of rain, but notice how it's moving somewhat quickly. Aside from some of the stuff we had going on here across parts of Chinook Pass near the Wildcat fire, the rain has moved on pretty quickly, and that is going to potentially prevent this from really having an impact on any of the fires. And also note, aside from the Wildcat fire near Mount Rainier there, it doesn't really look like any of our other fires have got much rain at all. We had some very light rain across some of the Central Cascades today. I believe the Sugarloaf fire got a little bit of rain, and we may be having some rain right now over the Labor Mountain fire there near the Stewart Range, but again, not very much at all compared to what we had over parts of Mount Rainier National Park there near the Wildcat fire. So yeah. Also, yeah, just a reminder real quick, thank you to our newest subscriber. Thank you, The Buds, for subscribing. Be sure to subscribe, be sure to like and comment on the videos and stuff as well. And you can also donate to the channel with the super chat function there on the channel. That is a new feature. I would love if you felt inclined to donate to the channel. I would love that very much, because that helps me to kind of elevate the product that I'm giving you guys on the Western Washington Weather YouTube channel, Facebook group, and all of that. So I'm very glad that YouTube is now allowing me to monetize the channel. It's very fun to get to that point. And also, of course, if you have any questions about the forecast of weather coming up, be sure to throw those in the chat as well, because it's always fun to talk about our current weather. We may have some interesting stuff coming up in the extended forecast as well, in terms of if we're going to get cooler, if we're going to get warmer. Oh, yes, and thank you, my friend Lyra there, saying in the chat, you can also buy new Western Washington Weather merch. We can take a look at that right now. I have it open right here. So we have 25% off on the Western Washington Weather merch store here for the next 6 days. And you can see that right here, 6 days, 25% off the shop. This is just the t-shirts and hoodies and sweatshirts category. We even have a tie-dye hoodie, guys. Look at that. That's pretty cool. Pullovers and stuff like that. Really cool stuff here, all with the Western Washington Weather logo. We even have accessories, like we have a tote bag, we have an apron, mugs, water bottles, a dog bandana, and we got beanies and drawstring bags. The sticker, this is a bestseller right here. And then if you are so inclined, we have these adorable stuffed animals, the dog, and especially this teddy bear. I mean, how could you not love this teddy bear that also has the Western Washington Weather logo on it, along with a baseball hat, tumbler, all this kind of stuff. It's really, really fun for me to design this site and put these cool products on here with Western Washington weather logo and all that. So be sure to check that out. The link to that, I will post it in the chat right now, and it is also in the description of all of the videos here. So let me put that in the chat for you guys. So there's a link to the Western Washington Weather merch store. Got a couple questions here in the chat. Kelly Hamilton says, how come lightning but not a bunch of thunder? Well, that is because of the distance you are from the storm. So if we zoom out here and we go to the latest satellite loop, we can kind of see where some of that lightning is relegated to. A lot of folks are seeing that lightning in the Cascades, and I was watching it from my drone, and I was basically just sitting in my driveway in Federal Way and watching the lightning in the Cascades from my drone, and I couldn't hear any of that thunder because they're too far away. The sound travels quite far, but it doesn't travel that far. So sometimes you can see the lightning, but you can't always hear the thunder, especially if you're, say, looking at something that's like 50 miles away. You can see lightning from a really long distance, but you can't always hear that thunder. Now, if you're 15, even 20 miles away, you can hear thunder. I heard some thunder tonight from some storms that were definitely about 15 miles away from me. I even heard some that was from maybe more like 20 miles away. So it's pretty interesting how that all works, and how we can all be seeing some storms sometimes and not necessarily hearing them. And you can see right now as we go into the night, some of the activity across the Cascades has started to diminish. You can see some continuing up into parts of Chelan County there. And then we have some storms that are firing there across parts of southern Pierce County and parts of Thurston and maybe Mason County, and even another storm here in Grays Harbor County as well. Let me check out the radar here. It looks like radar scope has frozen, which is unfortunate. And I don't know how we're going to refresh it. So we're just going to go and use this site as well. So if we zoom in a little bit just on what's going on right now, you can see that we have some storms going up here in parts of Grays Harbor County to the south of Aberdeen there, and in northern Pacific County near Raymond and South Bend as well. And yet another wave of activity here across parts of the southwest interior. You can see some storms on in northern Lewis County there, and then parts of Thurston County up over the Capitol Forest, moving up into Mason County as well. And then you have some more diminishing activity over northern and western Pierce County, with some somewhat strong activity still that's kind of pushed out of the mountains a little bit over the extreme southeast Thurston County, and then southern Pierce County near Eatonville and LB and stuff like that. And then this formerly strong activity that was over Chinook Pass and the Wildcat Fire and stuff like that has now started to move north and started to push a little bit up toward the Puget Sound area, with that just being stratiform rain. And then you have these thunderstorms that developed over Ellensburg and Kittitas County there, and those are starting to push north up into Chelan County, up into the mountains a little bit more. And it does look like, actually, you can see back here, we do have some more showers forming on the backside of all this, but it's somewhat questionable if any of these are going to turn into thunderstorms, because once you get a big area of thunderstorms here, it does kind of start to work over the atmosphere, and you lose some of that instability. You don't always get all that much after a big area of thunderstorms moves through, because you end up losing the instability, and then it just comes through as showers. Let me catch up on the chat here. Thunderstorms in Washington are so lame compared to thunderstorms in Japan. That is very true. And in general, thunderstorms in Washington State are very weak compared to thunderstorms in many other areas of the country and the world, frankly. I was in Canada for just over a week earlier this year, back in July, and we had just some really intense thunderstorms there out in the prairies, and didn't really have those here. We don't get those in Western Washington. Every once in a while you get a storm like that in Eastern Washington, but that's on like a 5+ year basis, that you get those every 5 years or so across Eastern Washington. And even then, it does not have the same power as it does across, say, parts of the Great Plains, the Canadian prairies, even some other thunderstorm hotspots, parts of Central Europe, Argentina, parts of Asia, and even China as well has some tornadoes and thunderstorms. See, Stephen Leonard says just got some lightning and thunder in the Olympia area. Yes, that is, you can see that happening right now. We have some thunderstorms just to the west of Olympia, and then some to the east as well. Looks like some of the stuff that started to move through Olympia has since weakened. But yeah, definitely some thunder and lightning in that area as well. Let's see. Lyra says, after moving from the east coast, I was shocked to find out how uncommon thunderstorms are in this area. Yeah, so Western Washington averages somewhere less than 10 thunderstorm days per year, which is about the same as you get all the way down the West Coast. Seattle, Portland, San Francisco have some of the metro areas with the least thunderstorms of any places in the United States. That would extend northward up into Vancouver, Canada as well. And so when we do have thunderstorms, people here tend to get very excited about it. And I'm sure if you have been watching this channel for any length of time, you have noticed that we get really excited around here for thunderstorms, especially when we get a big event. And even when we get somewhat minor storms like the ones we're having tonight. In terms of the entire country, these storms that we're watching are very minuscule. They would be laughed at, quite frankly, across most of the rest of the United States. But yeah, it's pretty interesting to have some thunderstorms here in Western Washington because we don't usually get it that often. So when we do, it's fun to take a look at it. It's fun to forecast it. And also, thunderstorms in Western Washington are notoriously difficult to forecast. So it's always improving our skill and learning a little bit more when we get these thunderstorms moving through the area. So something else we can do here is we can take a look at our extended forecast and see if we're going to be getting any rain in the area. We can look basically over the next 2 weeks at this forecast and see what's going on. So you can see the European model showed those thunderstorms today. And then as we go into tomorrow, you can see a few more areas of showers. And then we continue to get some showers at times across parts of eastern Washington. And then as we go into Monday, you see potential for some thunderstorms across parts of Oregon, but that doesn't really get into Washington. It weakens a little bit and then starts to move off to the east. That is something we can watch to see if that forecast changes a little bit. More thunderstorm chances over the Cascades through next week. You can see that continues with some thunderstorm chances over parts of eastern Washington and again in the Cascades, but nothing really western Washington there. Then it looks like we do have some sort of frontal system start to move toward the area potentially next Saturday, so about a week from now, and you can see that may bring some rain into the area. Of course, we're pretty far out in the forecast, so that could change a lot. Maybe more frontal systems going into the week after that, and maybe even some sort of you start to get the storm track moving a little bit closer at times as you go into late September, but then you can warm up again too. So you can see our forecast is kind of waffling back and forth a little bit. Some of these forecast model runs come in a little bit wetter than others, so we have to watch and wait and see what we have in terms of what comes up over the next few weeks. Thunderstorms over the Cascades is a pretty sure bet, and that may mean that we get some more of these fires. And we can take a look at the watch duty map as well to see if we have had anything new reported tonight. Looks like we do have a couple new starts here from this evening. Some thunderstorms did move through this area this afternoon. This is kind of Natchez Pass type area off of Highway 410. And then if we do want to take a look, let me know if you guys want to do this or not. We can take a look at some of the fires as well because these are continuing to grow. You can see, for example, here, the Lower Sugarloaf Fire north of Leavenworth, nearly to 10,000 acres, 9,076. And then it's not something we've talked about too much across western Washington, but there are some really big fires going on here in northeast Washington. You can see the Rattlesnake Fire there near the Columbia and Spokane Rivers confluence, over 10,000 acres, and then 1, 2, 3, the Katy Creek, Lynx Mountain, and Tacoma Creek fires in northeast Washington, all over 2,000 acres. And then the state's biggest fire here, the Crown Creek Fire, south of the city of Northport, 12,800 acres, burned together with the Black Hawk Mountain Fire, which has burned 1,000 acres. And remember when we looked at the air quality and we saw that this part of northeast Washington, where we're just looking at those fires, has insane air quality? That's why, because the smoke is getting trapped in the Columbia River's valley there. And that is why you're getting some of that really bad smoke, even across parts of eastern Washington. But look at western Washington. We're doing quite well. You can see the air quality all the way down to the good category there for most of the region. That is nice to see. let's see. I think the insane amount of humidity was part of the thunderstorms in Japan. Dew points constantly 70 plus. Yeah, that is definitely that's definitely why you can get some of those big thunderstorms in Japan, because, and even in parts of Canada and the United States, because you have the really high humidity, warm temperatures, and you often get some good setups aloft too to get those thunderstorms really going. Let me look at, yeah, we can look at Ellensburg real quick. Just, it looks like it's going to be a calm rest of the night there in Ellensburg. You can see some thunderstorms move through earlier. Maybe you have some scattered storms the rest of the night, but nothing significant. Nothing too out of the ordinary for Eastern Washington. So yeah, you should be good. Gotta plug in the computer here real quick. Apologies for that message. There we go. So yeah, Ellensburg looks good for the rest of the night. Not too much going on. Sonia says, when I was a kid, we used to have a ton of thunderstorms. Now it's very rare. Yeah, it's really interesting. It does kind of ebb and flow a little bit in terms of what overall patterns we have. Not just like El Nino and La Nina, but like when you get more troughing offshore in the summer, that can develop more thunderstorms. But when you get less troughing, more ridging, sometimes you get just more hot and dry days and less of those thunderstorms. So it is interesting to see how that works. Excuse me here while I take a drink real quick. So yeah, some years you get more than others. This year we've had a decent amount of thunderstorms, both earlier in the year, and then you get some of these setups across the Cascades. And you can see we can actually zoom in a little bit here. Let's do this. You can see how this is going still across parts of Thurston County. You just keep having these storms develop. So this is kind of showing you where that instability is. If we go to the next section northward here, you can look at parts of the Seattle area, and you can see that these storms get to a certain point and then they kind of weaken. So down here to the south, across parts of Thurston County, is where you got those storms being the strongest. You had some nice ones across parts of the Cascades, and then you can see once they get out over western Washington into not western Washington, I should say, the Pierce and King counties, they really weaken. Like here in Federal Way, I can, let me double check here on my own weather station personally. Here, let me see if we've even gotten any rain out of this. Looks like I've gotten 1/100th of an inch of rain since I started this live stream, which is not very much in terms of what is out here, but so you can see how it kind of, the storms get off the mountains, they lose that lift, they lose that instability, and they kind of weaken and diminish there. So that's why some places are not getting as many storms as you can, like, say you're down in Olympia, you've gotten a lot more than we have up here in, say, my area, Federal Way or Seattle and stuff like that. So yeah, we can also look at the smoke forecast, because I know that has been on a lot of people's minds lately in terms of how much smoke we have. You can see how the smoke aloft with these thunderstorms moving through is much, much less. I was surprised how much I was able to see. When I had my drone up tonight, I was able to see all the way up to the Cascades when those lightning strikes illuminated the sky. And you can see that here, that smoke aloft has really diminished. So as we go through tomorrow, you can see as we continue to have southerly flow, it starts to push some of that smoke away. And we can go and take a look at a bit of a longer forecast right here. So you can see going through the day tomorrow, that smoke starts to push away a little bit. And you can see also that a couple of the fires do put out a decent plume. Not that much on the Wildcat fire, and that could be because of all the rain that's fallen on it. But you can see Labor Mountain, Sugarloaf, and then these ones in northeast Washington blowing to the northeast. And that is because of the marine influence here. That'll mean the fires will grow eastward tomorrow, and then those smoke plumes cut off as we go into Monday morning. And you can see mostly clear skies across western Washington into Monday there in terms of smoke. We may have some clouds, but mostly clear with much less smoke aloft than we have had over the past few days. And you can see even going into Monday afternoon, these fires start to push off to the east. And if we look at surface smoke, we can take a look at that right here. This is going to show us here we can look at surface smoke right now. As we go into tonight, you can see western Washington much better. That's why we're having that good air quality right now. And then the surface smoke plumes pick up again. They're going into tomorrow afternoon, but you can see blowing to the east with that marine air. And you can see even the Sugarloaf fire is probably going to be the biggest, most active fire tomorrow. You can see that plume stretching clear across Douglas County into Grant County, and parts of stretching across Chelan, Douglas, and Grant counties. They're going into the evening. So there may be some pretty significant fire behavior on the southern and eastern sides there of the Sugarloaf fire. But other than that, you can see the fires in northeast Washington continuing to grow to the east. Those smoke plumes cut off as we go into Sunday night, and then going into Monday morning. You can see, or Monday afternoon, you can see more smoke plumes, but western Washington has good air quality, except for some areas very near the Bear Gulch fire. But those areas, especially Hood Canal, very, very used to just pretty bad air quality here basically all summer. I was out whale watching along Hood Canal in late July, I believe, and there was smoke back then, and it's just continued this entire summer across Hoodsport, Union, Lake Cushman especially. Just some extreme amounts of smoke up there, because the Bear Gulch fire started back by it was a human-caused fire that started back in the beginning of July. I was actually still out in Canada storm chasing in early July when that fire started, and then came back, and it was still going strong, and since has burned 10,000 acres, biggest fire on the Olympic Peninsula in at least 50 years. Something else we can take a look at here is the European models forecast from the ensembles in terms of how much potential rain we're looking at over the next couple weeks. So you can see what we're looking at here. All these gray lines are the different ensemble members, and these are what show its perturbed initial condition. So you have an initial condition, and then it is it moves it changes the initial condition 50 different times to give you 50 different forecasts, and you get an average and you get a control run, which is the initial conditions as best we understand them. So that blue line is the control run, the green line is the average, and then you have all of these gray ones that are your ensemble members, and this is giving you that average of how much rain we may be getting all the way out to September 22nd. And you can see it's not all that much, about an inch on the control run and a little bit more than a half inch on the average. So not all that much in terms of rain over the next few weeks here. This could change, of course. You have some higher ensemble members, but the vast spread of these are at or below 1 inch of rain. Speaking of rain, let's take a look back at the radar and see what we're looking at. We can zoom out just a bit to the entire state there, and you can see how the activity is starting to diminish. It's starting to turn more into just normal rainfall, and the only areas that really are continuing to get those thunderstorms is southern Thurston County there and southern Pierce County. You do have a few storms still developing actually on the back side of these. If you look at eastern Washington here, you can see actually near Ellensburg there another storm developing. And then over parts of Yakima County, you have a few more storms. But other than that, it doesn't look like there's going to be that much going on in these storms. If you look at our satellite loop here, the mid-level water vapor loop, you can see that you have these storms starting to diminish, and then these smaller storms developing on the backside, but not producing very much lightning. Still getting some decent lightning there down across parts of southern Pierce County. And in fact, we can turn on the road layer so I can see kind of what highways that's near. So let's zoom in real quick. There we go. So you can see Elbe is right here at the Highway 7, Highway 706 junction, and a lot of those storms are moving just north of Elbe and up toward Graham and stuff like that, and Roy and Yelmer over here as well. And we had some storms do this earlier, and they kind of petered out once they got to about central Pierce County there. And you can see you got actually some decent lightning strikes going there around parts of southern Pierce County. But how far these go is to be determined. So if we zoom out and then go and look at the radar, you can see where those storms are. Near that Pierce-Thurston County line is starting to move northward, but you can see we had some strong storms in that area earlier. I saw some lightning from these with my drone, but they didn't make it even halfway across Pierce County. They just kind of diminished pretty quickly there. So it's no guarantee how far these storms go. And again, as they get as I've been saying, they get further away from the mountains. They lose some of that lift. They lose some of that instability, and they start to weaken. And any rain we can get is good, so I'm not going to complain at all if I get some rain here in Federal Way instead of some thunder. But of course, we all do enjoy having a thunderstorm move over the area every once in a while. But at least some of us got to see it off in the distance as well, so that's pretty cool. Let's take a look again at our rain totals, see if we've gotten any increases here. You can see still raining a little bit out there by Chinook Pass. Some of the Cascades getting some decent totals, about a third of an inch there across the Greenwater area, about a tenth of an inch across most areas from Seattle southward, 5/100 of an inch to a tenth of an inch or so. And then you can see where that rain kind of cuts off. Not much from Everett or from Seattle northward there. Again, some parts of eastern Washington around Ellensburg getting about a quarter of an inch. Looks like near Paradise on Mount Rainier, they're getting nearly a half inch as well. And then parts of the southwest interior getting up to a tenth of an inch with these thunderstorms moving through, but really not that much. So this is definitely still having the potential to cause fires. There were a lot of lightning strikes up here. Let's see, the Buds asks, is it normal for rain to be the size of a golf ball? Yeah, it can. When you get really heavy rain and some of these thunderstorms that aren't dropping all that much rain, you get a lot of rain that falls in like a couple minutes, and even then sometimes it's not all that much rain. But it's kind of like hail. It moves around in the cloud for a while, gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and then all of a sudden it drops once it is big enough to have gravity take it over and pull it down. That is why you get that rain that's really big sometimes, and it really only happens in summer, because in the winter you just get the rain, it just falls. So that's why rain can be the size of a golf ball, just because it moves around in the cloud a lot and then falls down. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question there. While we're at it, let's take a look at some temperatures for the next few days. We'll go back here to Sunday. You can see highs across western Washington, upper 70s or upper 60s to low 70s. Same thing on Monday. A little bit cooler on Tuesday, potentially some showers moving through the area. Highs in the mid to upper 60s. That'll feel a lot more like September. Wednesday, you can see low 70s. Thursday, a little bit warmer, mid 70s, some areas. Same thing on Friday, and same thing on Saturday, low to mid 70s. That's really typical for this time of September, and it's good to see us getting some typical temperatures instead of things way too warm or way too cold. Going into even Sunday of next week, you can see upper 60s, low 70s. So that is good to see. We're going to be a little bit more seasonable coming up. That means less of these hot days where we have the unstable conditions here across parts of the mountains, and that's what caused all the smoke and rapid fire growth, and that is not going to happen as much this upcoming week. The main thing that's going to drive fire growth is when you have the afternoon winds that move through some of the valleys and the Cascades, and that will cause the fires and the smoke to push eastward across parts of eastern Washington. The only thing that could be impacting western Washington in terms of smoke is the areas that may be impacted by the Bear Gulch fire. A lot of these other fires will just be pushing their smoke out over eastern Washington, and some of that may hang around eastern Washington. You may get some smoke aloft at times over western Washington, but I don't expect anything as bad as we had over parts of this week in terms of all of the smoke. So that's good news. As you usually get into middle to later September, you start to lose a lot of that smoke. However, every once in a while you get those years, especially 2022 comes to mind. We have some pretty significant smoke and fires all the way into mid-October. But it does not look like so far that we're going to get that, although that can change. Our extended forecast has moved around at times here over the last few weeks. But overall, it looks like we're cooling down, and we can actually visualize that a little bit. So let's do that. This is the European model. We can look at the ensemble forecast, and you can see here's highs and lows for the next couple weeks here in Seattle, and that's a pretty nice sign there to see. You have highs in the low to mid 70s, and maybe decreasing a little bit going into next week, the week after next week, and you get those lows dropping slowly too. You can see lows dropping into the low to mid 50s by maybe the middle of the month. And again, that is very seasonable. That is what we'd expect at this time of year, and that's good to see because we want to get the things that we expect to happen. So yeah. We'll take a look at the radar one more time before I sign off here. It is past midnight. The storms are generally diminishing, and some areas may continue to see some rain, a few storms. So here's the radar right now. You can see some smaller storms continuing to develop across parts of the southwest interior, and then you can see Thurston and Pierce counties, especially the southern sections, still picking up on some thunderstorms there. But not all that much. There's also not all that much out there, so you don't have too many reports coming in about thunderstorms. You can see that behind the main storms there, you do have some more storms developing around Ellensburg, a little bit further south over parts of these mountains and ridges in there, the Yakima River Valley and stuff like that, moving down toward the city of Yakima. But you can see these storms moving north and not getting super strong because, again, like we talked about, the atmosphere gets worked over after you have all these thunderstorms move through. You lose a lot of that instability that was there before because all these storms tapped into it, and now they are diminishing and moving north. Let's see, an Alien Mango says, I hope we get rain in Pullman. The smoke has been real harsh in eastern Washington. Yes, it has, and even looking at the air quality right now over there in Pullman, you can see, here, this is the purple air map. It's better right now. You got air quality down to the moderate category, but you can see if we look at the average over the past few days, that air quality is really elevated up into the unhealthy category. And Pullman's actually been on the lucky side in terms of eastern Washington. As we look over here in, say, Wenatchee, you can see this is the Chelan Douglas Health Department. Look at that. That air quality has been in the unhealthy category for multiple days. And then going up into Colville, a major town there in northeast Washington. And they have just had extremely bad air quality. In fact, in the hazardous category now for almost 2 days. Just incredible up there with the proximity to some of the fires. But to answer the question there, rain in Pullman, possible, not all that much is likely. We can take a look at let's take a look at the forecast real quick here. European model, we'll drag it out here next couple days. Yep, we do have a chance for about 0.15 inches of rain through the next couple days in Pullman, just with a few thunderstorms moving through. And you may get some lightning and stuff as well at times with any showers that move through, so keep that in mind. Overall, not all that much rain, though, and not enough, certainly not enough to definitively put out any fires. And that's something I wanted to mention, too. I'm sure I'll be talking about this more over the next few weeks here, but to put out these fires, we're wanting at least an inch of rain. I would say we'd be better off with 2 to 3 inches of rain, and you want some low temperatures getting into the 40s at night, getting even cooler than that. That brings the humidity up a lot. That brings in a lot of moisture and takes away from the fire's fuel. So we're not to that point yet, but these cooler temperatures that we're getting, the rain and more clouds, higher humidity, all of that is going to work together to bring down the fires, make them easier to contain, but they're not going to be completely out until we get multiple inches of rain, lows down near freezing potentially, and definitely at least in the 40s, and those days of lots of clouds and high humidity. So we'll keep watching that, of course, over the next few weeks here in terms of how much containment they get on the fires and how quickly that happens and what forecasts we're having and how that will impact the fires. Let's see, when can you stream again? I really only do live streams and significant weather events, so stay tuned to my social media. Stay tuned to my, you can see it right here, Western Washington Weather YouTube, and then the Facebook group, and then my Blue Sky and Twitter accounts. And I will announce usually when I'm doing live streams on there, but really only during significant weather events. I do my daily briefings, and those are posted every day, usually in the morning, sometimes in the afternoon. Let's see, will Maple Valley see any more lightning tonight? No, I don't think so. We can look at the radar. You can see Maple Valley right in here. It had some lightning visible earlier, but now you're just having some of the residual rain from those weakening thunderstorms moving through the area. You can see we do have this area of storms still across southern Pierce County, and This may move northward. I'd say that it probably would not maintain its strength much past Tacoma, if it even gets that far. But you can see the areas that have been a little bit more conducive to storms. We do have some scattered storms moving through here to the south of the big area of storms that moved through this evening, but these are trending a little bit more to the east side of the Cascades. And then you have some isolated storms here south over parts of the Yakima, Lewis County line, but these aren't getting too strong. So bottom line there, maybe you get a little bit of thunder and lightning over Maple Valley, or probably to the east over the Cascades overnight, but nothing significant in the lowlands. It wasn't really supposed to be anything too significant in the lowlands. And then you can see you get this stuff over Thurston and Pierce counties. It strengthens a little bit, and then it starts to weaken as it moves northward. But we may get some thunder. I wouldn't be surprised if some of you hear a rumble of thunder or two overnight and maybe get some more rain, but nothing huge, nothing unprecedented or anything like that. Just a nice Pacific Northwest thunderstorm, which generally don't last for that long. So yeah, thank you all very, very much for watching. Again, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and you can donate to the channel if you would like in the super chat, in the live stream, or in the comments of the video with the super comments feature. And I'm also offering channel membership, so you can go check that out by clicking subscribe and then also clicking join or clicking the plus button, and you can support the channel that way as well. Again, we also have the merch store, 6 days left to get 25% off on the Western Washington Weather merch shop. I put the link to that in the chat, and I will put it in there one more time in case anyone has felt motivated by this live stream to get some cool Western Washington Weather gear. There is the link to it right there. And then, of course, be sure to like, subscribe, and share the videos. Tune in for my daily briefings. I do a lot of those, especially when we're having active weather. But I'm really just trying to do daily briefings as much as I can to help you guys out, help people get the forecast. And then you can follow the Western Washington Weather Facebook group, and then follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky. I'm always doing weather updates on there to keep people informed. So thank you all very, very much for watching. Again, more thunderstorms possible throughout the evening and into Monday morning, or sorry, Sunday morning there, but not anything like the big stuff we saw across parts of the Cascades this evening. So one final look at the radar there, and you see our couple storms across Pierce County. They're moving into Pierce County now from Thurston County, and then some stuff developing on the backside of our main storms. You may get some isolated thunderstorms over the next few hours here into early Sunday morning. Some storms developing and then weakening across parts of Grays Harbor and Mason counties, even into western Thurston County. And those are diminishing pretty quickly as well. So that's the overall picture. Here's the lightning strikes. You can see our main storm complex there, that really big anvil that we saw over parts of the region. And then we do have this one developing over parts of Eatonville right there, really actually is where it's nearing Eatonville, Spanaway, up toward Tacoma a little bit. This does bear some watching, so if you are kind of on the corridor from Eatonville up to Spanaway, and then up toward South Tacoma, and then downtown Tacoma there, and maybe even over toward Federal Way a little bit, and Gig Harbor and Vashon Island. If this keeps its strength, you may get some lightning and thunder. If it doesn't, you'll probably just get some residual rain. So yeah, that's all that's going on. That's the biggest thing to watch. Cascades. The thing we'll have to watch for is any new fires. We'll talk about that in tomorrow's video if we see it happen. Isolated storms continuing, and you have this storm in Pierce County that may bring some more lightning. So yeah, thank you all very much for watching. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you all enjoyed seeing the thunderstorms, and I will talk to you all later today in the midday briefing, most likely morning midday briefing. So stay tuned for that, and I will talk to you all later. Enjoy the storms, everybody.